All right, Nick Kypreos here. It's Saturday morning, and like we've always talked about, this show's about instant analysis too. We can come back, turn the cameras on, and start talking about what we woke up to this morning. A huge trade, Blockbuster between Columbus and Winnipeg, was worked on in the last 24 hours and came to fruition this morning. So what we do know as of now, Patrik Laine, Jack Roslovic from the Winnipeg Jets on their way to Columbus. And in return, Pierre-Luc Dubois goes to Winnipeg. And of course, also involved the Jets getting a third-round pick. So, Mac, when we start here, we certainly don't need, and let's bring in Doug Maclean from Florida for this instant analysis. We don't need to have our surprise faces on. Two disgruntled players change teams. Now, I can sit here, Mac, and tell you that I like the trade for many reasons, but the one thing I don't like from the Columbus side is giving up a bona fide number one center for a bona fide winger. I value the center position a lot more. I just wonder ultimately who plays with a guy like Patrik Laine.
Well, look, it's an interesting trade, and it's funny. If we talked 6 months ago that Dubois would be available, Laine, it was a match made in heaven. It was a trade we had talked about on this show that could potentially make sense. You've been pushing for months that Laine was going to be dealt from Winnipeg. I didn't quite buy it from you always, but obviously it's a big deal. Now, what happens here? All I know is it took 20 years for Columbus to get a number one centerman like Pierre-Luc Dubois. Not a number one centerman yet, but he's a great number two centerman. He slides into Winnipeg as a great number two centerman behind Scheifele and obviously Stastny, Lowry. What do Columbus get? Columbus get a pure score, something they desperately need. If I'm looking at it today, I would say Columbus with a pure scorer in Laine comes out ahead because they desperately need scoring. And Roslovic is a bit of a wild card in that we don't know what he is. He hasn't fit in Winnipeg at all. He had 12 goals last year. He's been a third, fourth liner. Can he go in, move into the center? Here's the downside for Laine and the Blue Jackets. Who is their center? Texier, Domi, Roslovic, Riley Nash. Laine didn't want to play with anybody but Scheifele in Winnipeg. Who is he going to want to play with there? And the big downside here for me for the Blue Jackets. So I like the scoring they get. There's two downsides for me. He's not signed. He's going to want 10, 11 million a year.
Okay.
The other problem is, what is Tortorella going to do with Laine?
We'll get into that, okay? But what Pierre-Luc Dubois was able to show in the bubble, and at times I thought went through the Toronto Maple Leafs like a hot knife through butter, Mac. And while we can talk about Patrik Laine potentially going there in a shortened series and still managing some way if he gets healthy in the next few days, scoring 25 or 30 goals. But Mac, who is that guy? And you just went through Columbus's center ice position. Who's going up against the other opponent's number one centerman in the playoffs here?
That's a real challenge. And to me, Max Domi is not even close to a number one centerman as much as we all like Max. He's not there. I think Montreal were right. I think he's got to play on the wing. I don't think he can play center. And Texier is a good young player, but to be a number one guy,
a shutdown guy as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's, as I said, I was there 9 years in Columbus. The best I could come up with was Derek Brassard. I missed out, because of where we were picking at different times, but that number one centerman is so hard to find. It's unbelievable. Dubois is a good fit in Winnipeg. His dad is there. We've talked about that on this show. His dad is the assistant coach. So Winnipeg becomes an issue. Does Laine really want to be in Columbus? I know he wanted out of Winnipeg. So, I mean, I like the fit for both teams, but I'm worried about who's going to ice for the Columbus Blue Jackets and I'm also worried does Tortorella. I mean, Paul Maurice tried to get Laine to play a 200-foot game, and he was successful at times and unsuccessful at times. How is this going to work?
Okay.
And Laine doesn't put up with coaches. He's not a coach lover.
Before we get into more so that and contract, just in terms of fleshing out what this means to the Winnipeg Jets, and no question, their forward base, I think in many ways has gotten better because I value that center ice positioning and what it means to control a hockey game. And we know Patrik can score, Mac, but he can't control a game. And no winger can control a game like a true number 1 or 2 centerman. So there's no question that Winnipeg went up a few notches in terms of their top 6. I think if I was Winnipeg though, and I was Cheval day off, I may have wanted to try to get a guy like even David Savard. I would have tried to get one blue chip defenseman out of Columbus. And my understanding is Savard's destined behind there, and because they can't afford him, certainly. But is that Winnipeg Jet blue line good enough now to truly make them Stanley Cup contenders with Pierre-Luc Dubois?
Dubois will help their blue line because of his play in the defensive zone as a backup man to their blue line. Their blue line is not good enough. It is not. And I agree with you 100%. Can they take this 3rd round pick and sweeten it up and find another defenseman that can help them? But they desperately need a defenseman. Hellebuck makes up a little bit for their blue line. Up front, they're going to be pretty strong down the middle without a doubt. So they've got to find a defenseman, and I've got to believe that's on Chevy's list. Let's not forget, just going back to Columbus for a minute with Laine, what he does for their power play. Dubois moves off. Laine moves in as a real number 1 power play threat with Seth Jones, Werenski, and with Laine there. That should significantly improve Columbus's power play look. So, you know what? As I said, scoring-wise, I think it helps the Blue Jackets, especially if Roslovic can find his touch. And I'm not sure on him. I think he's been a mixed bag for me. We'll see what he becomes. I know he's going home, but sometimes that always isn't the best thing either. So to me, it's a really interesting deal. But where it all could collapse is what you talked about, and that's the contract.
Okay, here we go. When it comes to Laine, and the only way this makes any sense for General Manager Jarmo and the whole Blue Jackets organization is if he's sticking around a lot longer for the next 3 years, right? So he comes in, and while Pierre-Luc Dubois has 2 years left on his contract that he just re-signed at $5 million per, Patrik Laine's contract expires this year, and he is now, Mac, eligible for arbitration. And with his numbers, Mac, and this was the dilemma in Winnipeg, and I told people this even a few years ago. This is why he's going to get traded, because he can go to arbitration, and with the likes of Matthews and Matthew Tkachuk as comparables, right? But when it comes to even putting the puck in the net, okay, Austin Matthews at 11.5 and Tkachuk making $9 million next year. Patrik Laine in his sleep can get from an arbitrator anywhere between $9 and $10.5 million, Mac, on a short-term deal. That is unheard of, and that is very dangerous for Columbus, as he could walk out the door in 3 years as an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, and the last thing Columbus need right now is another guy saying, okay, I want to be traded. And, there's enough rumblings about Seth Jones down the road. What do they do with this guy if he really is a hardball guy? I'm wondering, and I thought about this morning. Well, surely they talk contract with the representatives of Laine. I don't know if they have.
My understanding, Mac, is that there is no talk at all. I don't believe Columbus made this trade with a thought process or an idea or a basis to work on a new contract. I think Columbus just made the deal knowing that Patrik Laine's got what he's got left on his deal, and the worst scenario is that they go into arbitration. So no talks between Columbus and Laine's group as far as an extension.
And not just go to arbitration. What if he decides he doesn't want to re-sign there? You know, I know they can force the arbitration. I get that, but this shocks me that there wouldn't have been some discussion to get a framework of what it's going to take to do an extension when you're dealing with these big names.
But the Columbus has some time. They do have some time.
They have time. Yeah, they can re-sign him in March. You know, they can start negotiating March 1. So they have time. But I still think that's scary. But hey, good trade for both. Scoring for Columbus, if the center ice position can help Laine, power play help Columbus, Dubois. Listen, when they lost Scheifele against Calgary in the playoffs last year, Winnipeg were done. Now with Scheifele, Dubois in the 1-2 spot, Stastny in the 3-hole, Lowry in the 4-hole, that is a great center ice, especially a center ice playoff group.
Want to get your perspective on this before we wrap it up. We saw two disgruntled players. Now, I'm a players guy. I love the fact that Patrik Laine went into training camp and said, I'm here, aren't I? And I could only imagine what that did to Cheveldayoff. And then on the other hand, you got Tortorella absolutely ripping the player. And say what you will about both these guys. They wanted out, and their strategy worked, Mac. To me, it shows where all the power is going now, to these star players. You're not happy? There's a way to get out. Just make a little bit of noise. Good for the player. I'm not so sure it's good for your group, man, because the pressure on Columbus and Winnipeg was an awful lot.
You know, it is. It's extremely. And then when you get your coach benching the guy, it just brings it to a whole nother level. At least, I mean, that didn't happen with Laine. Paul Maurice continued to use him. But, you know, Tortorella, you know.
I love it.
I guess Mac, Tortorella won. He got Dubois out of there.
No, I think Pierre-Luc Dubois won, right?
Well, I know.
Right?
Exactly.
He got out of there.
But Torts also would appear that he won too, because I mean, you know, what went on the
temporarily,
last couple of days.
Yes. Temporarily,
yes, exactly. But I agree. But this is a scary situation.
There's a chance. There's a chance that Patrik Laine will still go in there and score goals, but they'll be less successful.
Right. And here's the other thing. This happened. Look, what if Tkachuk in Ottawa says the same thing down the road? What if the stars here in different cities start to say this? It's a little bit frightening. What is interesting is Dubois goes to Winnipeg, where they have trouble keeping players, I guess, at times. Laine goes to Columbus, and it's been well documented lately that, you know, a lot of media perception is they can't keep players. Interesting way to see it end.
More power to the players, top players. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Your group, sorry.
My group is the media group now.
My
group, my group is the senior citizen group up at the hall up the road, not management.
Well, we'll see how this kicks in. We'll see if Patrik Laine is healthy enough in the near future to get going again. But no question, I think there's some people excited that Pierre-Luc Dubois could put Winnipeg in another light towards winning a Stanley Cup.
Hey, listen, and people in Columbus are excited too. Let's not sell that short. They're excited about getting a pure score.
All right. Thanks for doing this. Sorry to pull you off the beach. You were booking a cabana when I called you. What were you doing?
I got my short bathing suit still on. I just pulled on a shirt.
That's not a visual I needed going into this weekend. I can tell you that. Doug Maclean out of Florida, FLI, on the Patrik Laine, Pierre-Luc Dubois blockbuster. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and the games. All right, I often refer to Doug Maclean as FLI, Florida International, because he is a man of mystery. But great breakdown of the trade. And listen, give us your comments. Tell us what you think of the trade. Me, if I'm getting rid of a number one center in Columbus like Pierre-Luc Dubois, I want a number one centerman back. But certainly they went in a different direction with the top goal scorer, Patrik Laine. We'll see how he fares out. It might be a while until we see this actually happen on the ice. Pierre-Luc Dubois in quarantine for the next little while. And Laine is nursing what we believe is an oblique injury. So hopefully that is day to day and we can start seeing that great goal scorer that he is now do his magic in Columbus. So thanks for joining us. If you're a first-time watcher, please subscribe. We'll let you know when we're coming on, and we'll have plenty to talk about as early as Monday. I'm Nick Kypreos for the Real Kyper at Noon show. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the games.